Hi everyone, today I'm talking about INFJs and INFPs and chronic pain. Chronic pain is an issue that many INFJs and INFPs deal with. This comes up frequently during my classes when we talk about the physical body, physical symptoms that come along with inner work, inner growth and evolution. Frequently, there are many people in the class who say, I have chronic pain, whether it's from an injury, maybe a back injury or a hip injury, or maybe it's from a chronic illness. Quite a few INFJs and INFPs struggle with things like fibromyalgia, which of course can bring chronic pain into your life. I personally experienced this myself. I don't have fibromyalgia, but I've had a chronic hip and back issue for years now. And it's one of those things where you can't quite pinpoint the source or what's going on. I think it might be related to an injury. I'm not sure. I've tried many different things. I've tried yoga. I've tried acupressure. I'm currently doing myofascial release therapy. I've tried many different things, and it gets better and it gets worse and it tends to fluctuate. It can be very frustrating. Many introverted, sensitive people suffer from chronic pain. With being introverted and sensitive, so if you are an INFJ or an INFP personality type and you have chronic pain, there are a couple of things to really keep in mind when you are working with that pain and you're managing that pain. Because we have a couple different tendencies in our personality makeup that tend to contribute to chronic pain and can cause more difficulties rather than alleviating it. So I don't want to say that this is the cause of the chronic pain, because chronic pain has many different causes and it really depends on who you are, your life circumstances, what you're going through. And no one knows the cause of your pain more specifically than you do. But these are a few contributing factors that tend to come along with our personality type that can really make the pain worse or make it harder for us to manage the pain. So the first is energy overwhelm. Energy overwhelm is a big contributing factor to the increase of chronic pain. What is energy overwhelm? Well, first, it's just what it sounds like. It's when you're overwhelmed by energy. And if you have already known that you're an empath and you've done research on being an empath and you've watched videos and you've read all the articles about being an empath, you know that you get overwhelmed by energy, the emotions of others, the energy of others, the energy of places, locations, being in big crowds, the news, the media. If something has a very intense negative tone or negative vibe to it, you will pick up on that and you will most likely carry it with you, and it does affect you. So that's part of energy overwhelm, is actually being overwhelmed in the moment by a certain person or a certain location, a certain situation you're in. But it also goes beyond that for INFJ and INFP personality types. For INFJs and INFPs, it's very hard for us to say no to other people. We are natural givers. We are at our best when we are giving if we're doing it in a balanced way. We love to give to other people. We love to meet other people's needs. We love to help. We do love to caretake. That's real. We love to counsel other people, and we love to be there for other people, especially the people we love. We'll do it for strangers, as all of you will probably attest if you've been on an airplane or you've been on the subway and the person next to you starts pouring out their life story and you're able to compassionately hold space while they do that. Yes, we will do it for strangers, but we really love to do it for our loved ones, our family, our friends, those dearest to us. So giving is a very important part of our lives. It's a very important part of our makeup. However, because it's so hard for us to say no, it's so hard for us to turn people away when they're in need, even if we are already stretched thin, if we are already stressed or depleted in our own lives, and we really don't have the energy to hold space for someone else in that moment. We really don't have the energy to be there for someone in that moment. A lot of the time, we will do it anyway, whether we do it out of guilt, whether we do it out of a sense of obligation, or whether we do it because we truly want to help that person and we are just sort of overriding our own limits in order to be there for them, putting their needs ahead of our own. That's a very common thing for INFJs and INFPs to do all the time on autopilot in default mode, is to put everyone else's needs ahead of our own. So this really results a lot of the time in us feeling completely stretched beyond our limits with a completely fried battery, but we still keep giving and giving and giving. So that's what I mean by energy overwhelm. And when you're in a place where you're overwhelmed, the smallest thing can really tip you over the edge. So too many people texting you, a phone call you really have been dreading making because we hate the phone. Actually using the phone and making dreaded phone calls takes a lot of energy out of us, much more energy than it would for, let's say, a normal person in mainstream society. And that's something a lot of people don't understand. Why did your entire quota of energy for the day get used up on one phone call to the insurance company? Because it's hard for us. A lot of the time, it's hard for us to talk to strangers. It's hard for us to initiate conversation. It's hard for us to navigate paperwork and bureaucracy and concrete details. So making one dreaded phone call, it really can zap our battery. And if we have to do that over and over again, we go into energy overwhelm. Now, the second thing that contributes to chronic pain and makes it hard to manage is driven behavior. And driven behavior goes hand in hand with energy overwhelm. So what is driven behavior? Driven behavior is an issue I work on in my classes with students quite frequently because it comes up so much for INFJs and INFPs. Driven behavior is a very frantic, restless activity that you are doing repetitively, where you feel like you're doing something. You feel like you are completing work, you're completing tasks, you're making progress, but in actuality, you're not. You're not actually accomplishing very much at all. So an example of driven behavior would be email. Email falls into a category of driven behavior, especially if you work for a large corporation or you work for a company where people are expected to be on email or on Slack, similar platforms all the time. And you might have noticed you get a lot of useless emails, or you get a lot of emails where someone's asking a question and they really could have found out the answer for themselves. They could have Googled it, but instead they wrote you an email. Or they're just checking on something, they're micromanaging you, and they want an update when there's not much of an update to give, and you just gave them an update that morning. So there's not really a reason to send them a message on Slack again or email them back, but it's happening anyway. So email and text messaging, any sort of back and forth mundane interaction can really fall into driven behavior. And I've heard from many INFJs and INFPs who say, I wake up in the morning and I have some energy and I go off to my job or I sit down at my desk and I start checking email, and an hour or two later, I'm completely depleted. I feel like I've done a lot of work, but really I haven't gotten anything done because I've been working on email all morning. So all of my real projects where I needed to sit and I needed to concentrate and focus for long periods of time, I needed to concentrate deeply, that didn't happen because I was answering 20 different emails. Household tasks can fall into driven behavior. Some INFJs and INFPs, especially if we're feeling anxious, we're feeling nervous, we feel like we want to be a little bit more in control, we will bring this driven behavior to household tasks. So my house always has to be at a certain level of clean, even if no one's coming over, even if my spouse doesn't care. Now that doesn't mean you should let your house fall into neglect. However, sometimes things can be a little bit messy and it's okay. A couple dishes can sit in the sink. You don't need to mop the floor every single day. Some things can be left undone, but with driven behavior, it's like you're constantly circling the house, picking up this, picking up that, picking at this, picking at that, doing the one dish in the sink. So you feel like you're doing something, you feel like you're making progress, but you're really just wearing yourself out. This is very common for INFJs and INFPs, this driven behavior. And what happens, the more stressed we become, the more insecure we become, especially about our self-worth or how useful we are or how productive we're being, the more we will unconsciously engage in this sort of driven behavior. It's not helpful, it just uses up our energy. And it can get almost to the point a lot of the time of feeling ritualistic or compulsive. I've heard many INFJs or INFPs say to me, I'm a little OCD about cleanliness or checking my email or checking my phone or making sure these tasks are done. And I know these days, saying like I'm OCD, it's not a casual thing. There are people who really struggle with actual obsessive compulsive disorder. But that doesn't change the fact that these people are conveying something to me when they say that. They're saying, this feels a little bit out of my control. This feels somewhat compulsive. It's something that I have to do. And there's some part of me that's aware that it's not that important, but I still feel driven to do it. And, people have even told me, if I don't get it done that day, I'll lay in bed that night and I won't be able to sleep. I'll just think about it and then I'll overthink. So this is driven behavior. Driven behavior is actually encouraged in a lot of mainstream workplaces. If you've ever worked at that job where you've said, well, I work 9 to 5, and in all honesty, all my work is done by 2 or 3 in the afternoon, and the rest of the time I'm just sitting at my desk, checking email, checking Slack, browsing around on the internet, like waiting for a message to come in, kind of doing busy work. That's driven behavior, right? It's this encouragement of, even when there is actual no work to do, you should always have the appearance of working. You should always have the appearance of being busy. That's how you're a good worker. That's how you're a good productive member of society. You should always have that appearance of working and being busy, even if the actual work is done, which, if you slow down and think of it, is quite absurd. If the actual work is done, it's okay. Go take a rest. Go read a book. You've finished the work you planned for that day. You don't need to do the busy work. But this is so ingrained in our culture, and it's so ingrained in us from an early age that we don't even question it. If you are suffering from chronic pain, if you're struggling with chronic pain, it's really important for you to keep an eye on your energy levels. And some days, your energy levels are going to be low. The days your energy levels are going to be low, it's absolutely not a good idea to engage in driven behavior because it's work for work's sake. Nothing is getting done anyway, and you are wasting precious energy you don't really have to keep up appearances or to tell yourself that you're useful, to play a mind game with yourself about your own self-worth. If your energy levels are high that day and you actually feel like you have a little bit of extra energy, that extra energy should go toward you. That extra energy should go toward self-care activities, actually having a little bit of fun, maybe catching up with a friend who you love and you haven't had the energy to talk to in a month, your creative work, working on your novel, listening to music and talking to your characters. That's what your extra energy should go toward, not mopping the kitchen floor or checking your email even more that day, weeding through paperwork, going through piles of paper on your desk because you have extra energy. Energy is your most precious asset. It's your most precious commodity, and we don't need to waste it, whether or not our energy levels are high or low. With both of these things, energy overwhelm and driven behavior, and yes, the driven behavior feeds directly into the energy overwhelm. The more you engage in driven behavior, the more you will go into energy overwhelm because you will feel like it's too much. So what's the solution to this? This is such a kind of tangled, sticky problem for so many INFJs and INFPs because we've been doing it for so long. This feels like just a normal part of life and we don't really question it. The solution is uncomfortable. The solution is to start saying no. The solution is to put boundaries and containers around your time and your energy. So I check email 1 hour a day. It's in the afternoon and that's it, Or I check my text messages a couple times a day and that's it. And people need to wait for me to get back to them. I don't get back to people immediately. I don't jump when people need something. That's very difficult for INFJ and INFP personality types. We usually feel like we need to be on call for people. We feel like we need to be at people's beck and call. And that's just not true. We actually need to start saying no and put a buffer of time and space in between someone's request to us, in between their question. We also need to say no to this idea that we need to be constantly productive, that we need to earn our self-worth by being useful and being a hard worker. This is going to be very difficult and uncomfortable for you if you were raised in a family where you were taught that everybody has to be working all the time. I've heard this over and over again from my students. I always have a student who says, my mom and dad really ingrained this in me. Weekends were not for lazing around or lounging around or wasting time. On the weekends, we all had chores and we all had to always be busy. And my mom never sat down. She was always moving around the house, cleaning. And my dad was always working, and that was how it was in our household. If you wanted to go lay in your room and read a book, that was discouraged. You were shamed for that. You were said that you were lazy. If you wanted to go lay out in the backyard under a tree and think about a poem you want to write, that was discouraged. That was looked down upon, right? So if you grew up in that kind of family where you taking time for yourself, you slowing down, you taking time to just be and not do, if that was shamed, that's something you're going to have to work with. When you start saying no to constant productivity, it's going to feel hard and it's going to feel uncomfortable. But if you can work with it and you can notice, oh, I'm feeling really uncomfortable because I'm sitting down and I'm watching my favorite TV show instead of cleaning the kitchen, and my mind is telling me I'm lazy. My mind is telling me I'm useless because I'm taking time for myself because I'm honestly tired. And really, the kitchen doesn't need to be cleaned right now. If you can work through that in your mind and talk to yourself about it and notice, oh, I see what's going on, and I don't know that makes this much sense. Is that really true? In the words of Byron Katie, who I love, and I always encourage everyone to really get into the work of Byron Katie. That's the one question she always asks. Is that really true? Whatever you're telling yourself, whatever you're believing, is that really true? How do you know it's true? What's the evidence? Because your mind is saying that? That's not really great evidence. Because your parents told you that? Okay, well, what do some other people in the world think, right? So we start to question. We start to kind of pull on these threads, and sometimes, a lot of the time, when we start pulling on these threads, the whole thing comes apart, and we see how it was an illusion. We see how it's just a belief system that we chose a long time ago when we didn't really know we had another choice, but now we're much older, and we do have different choices, and we can choose something else if that feels better to us. So we say no to constant productivity, we say yes to rest, and we say yes to the discomfort that comes with saying yes to rest. I am teaching a new class on this topic and so much more. The new class is called INFJ and INFP Life. I made it a purposefully broad umbrella because there's so much to unpack about INFJ and INFP life. As always, this class came to me inspiration from my last class I taught. My last class I taught, so many issues about just being an INFJ or an INFP in the world came up, and we really talked about that a lot, about feeling like we don't fit in, feeling like we don't align with the cultural norm. What does that mean? How can we feel emotionally better about that and accept that knowledge? So we're going to be talking about all of that, and also topics like our obsessive need for harmony and how that affects things. Like I said, energy overwhelm. We always want to be there for other people. We always want to harmonize. Sometimes that can be damaging to us. And how we can work with that so we still feel like we're getting our needs met as the harmonizer, but we're not going into energy overwhelm. Also, how we use productivity and accomplishment to earn self-worth. This is a really big issue for INF people. I personally think it's because from a young age we're so aware of how we don't fit in, and we're so aware of how different we are, and we internalize that, and we have really low self-esteem about that. We feel shame. We feel like something's wrong with us. Almost every INFJ and INFP I've ever worked with or had in my class at some point will say to me, I always thought there was something wrong with me. I always thought I was broken. I always thought I was defective. This is a whole new world, and now that I'm figuring out maybe there's not something wrong with me, maybe I'm an intuitive person, maybe I'm an INFJ personality type, maybe I'm an INFP personality type, and that comes with different things. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm defective. So we're going to talk about that and how we can start incorporating that kind of mindset so we're not always trying to strive and achieve to prove ourselves and to kind of show the world, look, I do have worth. I'm not defective, right? We can let that go, and we can start putting our energy toward what we really care about instead of just trying to accomplish things for accomplishment's sake. Boundaries. I talk about boundaries in every one of my classes. It's a topic that needs to be talked about in every class I do because it's such a difficult topic for INFJ and INFP people. If you've been doing boundary work for years, You know how hard it is. If you haven't been doing it for years, but you know you need to do it, right now you're probably self-shaming and saying, oh, I know I'm really bad at boundaries. I hear that a lot too. It's easier in a group. I will say that for sure. It's easier in a group to talk about your boundary issues and to see people who are going through similar struggles, similar lifelong struggles, I may add, and get encouragement and get support and see how other people are doing it and try out strategies that other people share. That always happens in my classes. It's a really beautiful thing. Registration for this class, INFJ and INFP Life, starts March 22nd. I'm opening it March 22nd. The first class is Wednesday, March 27th. So as always, there will be that 5-day registration window. If you have questions at all about the class, about the topics, if there's something that you would like me to include in the class, if you're going to join the class and you're like, I'm already in, I'm really interested in this, but I'd really like you to address this specific issue, or this is a problem I've had for years, like, can we talk about it in class? Send it to me, please. I will fold it into the class material. Everybody's suggestions are welcome, and they're always so helpful to see the real life problems that other INFJ and INFP personality types are going through. Thanks so much, everyone. I hope I see you in this new class. Oh, also, please sign up for my newsletter. That's where I send out all the updates about my classes. So if you want to get the notifications on when registration opens, first day of class, when it closes, all the details, all of that good stuff, the next videos in this series launching the class, please sign up for my newsletter. The link is below. Thanks so much, everyone. I'll see you next time.